Sacred threads, a journey through the world's religions. Before temples rose or scriptures sang, before names like Yahweh, Buddha, or Allah echoed through history, humanity looked up at the stars and asked, "Why are we here?" Sacred Threads is a sweeping 15-part audio odyssey into the heart of our deepest yearnings, for meaning, for order, for the divine. From the silent meditations of Jain monks to the cosmic battles of Zoroastrian myth, from the fire of Sinai to the path beneath the Bodhi tree, this series traces the origins, stories, and living truths of the world's great religions, and the new ones still being born. You'll walk with prophets, philosophers, and skeptics. You'll witness the rise of sacred texts and hear the whispered doubts of those who walked away. And through it all, you'll discover not just what others believe, but what belief itself reveals about us. Whether you're faithful, skeptical, or just curious, this is more than a history of religions. It's a mirror, and the question it reflects is eternal. What do you worship when the world falls silent?
The dawn of religion.
Episode 11, Fire and Fragrance, Zoroastrianism. Narrator's Prelude. A courtyard of packed earth. Pre-dawn air is cold enough to bite the teeth. In the eastern dark, a priest cradles a bronze cup of fragrant wood chips. Another raises a ladle of clarified butter. A small fire answers, a flower of light. With each hymn, the flame brightens, not because the gods feed on smoke, but because human attention does. Across millennia and empires, this is how Zoroastrianism greets the day. Fire tended, breath steady, words precise. A compact between mind and flame. Tonight we follow one of the world's oldest still living religious traditions, a faith kindled by a prophet poet in the Iranian plateau, stewarded by empires and exiles, and kept alive by good thoughts, good words, good deeds. We will meet Zarathustra, hear the oldest hymns in his voice, watch Persian kings invoke Ahura Mazda, and enter a cosmology where truth and lie are not abstractions, but forces that tilt the world. 1. The world before Zarathustra, Roots and Rupture. 1.1 Iranian Horizons. 3,000 years ago, the Iranian branch of the Indo-Iranian peoples grazed herds and farmed oases from the high plains east of the Zagros to the Oxus. Their language linked them to cousins on the Indian subcontinent, their mythic furniture, sky gods, intoxicating plant elixirs, ritual fire shows a shared inheritance. In that older religion, the Devas were bright gods and Asuras noble lords. 1.2. A reformer steps out of line. Somewhere in this world, scholars still debate the exact when. Proposals range from the late 2nd millennium BCE to around 1000 to 600 BCE. A priest-poet Zarathustra, Avestan Zarathustra, Greek Zoroastras, begins to sing a different song. In his hymns, the Gathas, the old line between gods and demons flips. Those deities craving blood, sacrifice, and intoxication become devas, not gods, but deluders. The true wise lord is Ahura Mazda, the wise lord, who calls humans to ally with Asa, truth, right order, against Druj, lie, distortion. Zarathustra describes a vision, not of a remote sky tyrant, but of a moral reality that answers thought with thought. He is shown the Amisha Spentas, bountiful immortals, which are not separate gods so much as living attributes of Ahura Mazda. Vohumana, good mind. Asha Vahishta, best truth, right order. Ikshatra Vairya, desirable rule.
Spanta Armaiti, devoted serenity.
Halvatat, wholeness. Amoritat, immortality. These are ethical and cosmic at once. Truth is also fire's right burning. Serenity is also Earth's receptive strength. To choose them is to steer creation itself. 1.3. The Twin Spirits and Human Choice. One Gathic hymn, Yasna 30, speaks of two primal spirits, one who chooses truth, one who chooses the lie. Later tradition names the destructive one Angra Mainyu, Middle Persian, Ahriman, and the creative, beneficent presence Spenta Mainyu, a way of saying that good and evil are real orientations, not mere shadows, and that humans are enlisted. Zarathustra's path is not ritual for ritual's sake. It is ethical allegiance, humata, hukta, huvarshta, good thoughts, good words, good deeds. 2. The Gathas and the Making of Scripture. 2.1. Poetry at the Core. The Gathas, 17 metrical hymns embedded in the later Avesta, are the oldest layer of Zoroastrian scripture. Their language, Old Avestan, is spare and knotty, akin in age to the earliest Vedic hymns across the mountains. They sing of a community harassed by violent rivals, of a prophet pleading with a skeptical patron, and of a future renovation, Frasho Dokkareti in Avestan, later Middle Persian Frashokkareti, when creation is healed, the dead rise, and the lie is burned out of the world. 2.2. The Avesta's Layers. Centuries of oral transmission and priestly expansion build a larger tapestry. Yasna, the central liturgy, recited around a fire with ritual implements that includes the gathas and prose invocations. Visperad, extensions to the yasna for high festivals. Vendidad, Videvdad, a law hymnal with purity codes, myths, and expiations, later and more legalistic in tone. Yashts, hymns to Yazatas, worthy beings like Mithra, covenant, Anahita, waters, Tishtraya, the star Sirius and rains, Sraosha, obedience, listening, Rashnu, justice, Virathragna, victory, Corda Avesta, Little Avesta, daily prayers and later devotional texts. The Avestan alphabet used today was devised under Sasanian rule, 3rd to 7th centuries CE, to capture the exact sounds of the inherited recitation. For centuries before that, priestly memory and training were the archive. 2.3. Liturgy as exactness. Zoroastrianism never parted ethics from precise speech. A priest, Avestan Zaotar, later Middle Persian Mobed, recites mantra, empowered formulae, while holding the barsum, a bundle of twigs or metal rods, stirring milk and water, and preparing the hauma, a plant-based sacred drink whose exact botanical identity is still debated. The ceremony tends a purified space, specially cleaned garments, ritually filtered water, care for fire, care for the earth, because truth loves cleanliness and life thrives where pollution recedes. 3. Fire and the House of Prayer. 3.1. Why fire? Atar, sacred fire, is not a god to be fed, but a presence that welcomes truth and repels defilement. Fire is visible order. It consumes without rotting, clarifies metal from ore, and asks for attention. Zoroastrian communities later keep fires of varying dignity, Atash Bahram, fire of victory, the highest grade, enthroned after an elaborate consecration that blends fires from varied sources, from a potter's kiln to a shepherd's hearth, each richly purified, symbolizing society gathered and made one. Adaran, a mid-grade fire. Dadga, household or small temple fires. In Iran, these are a tashkadeh. In India, Ajiari, Gujarati, Persian, via colonial English. The architecture is modest. The flame is the sovereign. 3.2. Purity and the elements. Creation is good and worth protecting. Hence a careful purity code. Avoid contaminating water or earth with corpses or waste. Contain pollution in designated spaces. Bathe and launder regularly. Handle dead matter with specialized nasasela, corpse bearers. Purity is not snobbery. It is ecology ritualized, a way of keeping the elements in their proper dignity. 4. Achaemenid Persia, empire under the wise lord. 4.1. Cyrus, Darius, and the rhetoric of right rule. By the 6th century BCE, Iranian tribes under Cyrus the Great welled an empire from Anatolia to the Indus. Inscriptions from his successors, above all Darius I, especially the trilingual Behistun, invoke Ahura Mazda, Old Persian form of Ahura Mazda. By the grace of Ahura Mazda, I am king. Ahura Mazda bestowed the kingdom upon me. Darius frames rebellion as drauga, lie, and his justice as artham, truth, Persian cognates of druj and asha, suggesting that Zarathustrian ethics have become state vocabulary. Achaemenid policy is pragmatic. Local cults continue. Persian elites patronize Anahita and Mithra. Magi, Median priests, appear as ritual specialists at court. The result is not a single dogmatic church, but a spectrum of Mazda worship under imperial aegis. 4.2 Contact zones. Under Persian rule, exiled Judeans return and rebuild in Yehud. Greek observers meet Persians in war and diplomacy. Ideas travel. Angels, demons, cosmic struggle, eschatology. Themes later prominent in Second Temple Judaism and beyond. Breathe Iranian air. Influence is complex and debated, but cultural cross-pollination is undeniable where empires meet. 4.3 Alexander and after. Alexander's conquest, 330 BCE, burns palaces and scrambles elites. Greek-ruled satrapies give way to the Parthians, Arsacids, a looser, cavalry-rich empire, 3rd century BCE to 3rd century CE. Throughout, Zoroastrian ritual life persists in temples and households, but centralized scripture and priestly authority fray. Much of what we now call Avesta is recollected and systematized later. 5. Sasanian Renaissance, a church of empire, 224 to 651 CE. 5.1 Ardashir's New Start. In 224 CE, Ardashir I overthrows the Parthians and founds the Sasanian dynasty, naming it after his ancestor, a hereditary priest. From the start, religion and crown knit tight. Ardashir's inscriptions claim Swara, royal glory, by Ahura Mazda's favor. Investiture reliefs show king and god mirrored, with a defeated lie underfoot. Zoroastrianism becomes explicitly the state religion. 5.2 Priests and Policy. Two figures stand out. Tanzar, Tozar, credited in later sources with standardizing rites and reprimanding local kings for excesses. A letter of Tanzar survives in later paraphrase, portraying him as architect of orthopraxy. Kartir, Kirda, a powerful high priest under several kings who left rock inscriptions boasting of promoting Mazda worship, organizing fires and priests, and curbing rivals. He names Jews, Christians, Manichaeans, and others. Kartir's zeal shows both the strength and the danger of a church-state partnership. 5.3 Texts, translations, and schools. Sasanian courts sponsor a redaction of the Avesta, with Pahlavi, Middle Persian translations and commentaries. The later misunderstanding Zend Avesta comes from Zand, commentary. Priestly schools memorize. Scribes finally write what had been music in memory. Avestan survives as a liturgical language, like Latin millennia later. 5.4 The Three Great Fires. Sasanian tradition names three royal fires as guardians of realms. Adur Farnbag, glory of the priestly estate. Adur Gushnasp, warriors and kings. Adur Burzanmir, farmers and commoners. Whether these were truly national shrines or later memory gilded by pride, they capture the Sasanian ideal. Society's estates warmed by one sacred flame, seen through three faces. 5.5 Doctrine in full color, eschatology and ethics. Sasanian theologians systematize what the Gathas seeded. Asha versus Druj, truth and lie as metaphysical poles and daily choices. Chinvat Bridge. At death, souls cross a bridge that widens for the truthful and narrows to a razor for the deceitful. Dina, one's own religion, insight, appears as a maiden, beautiful or hideous, depending on one's life. Rashnu, justice. Mithra, covenant. And Srausha, obedient attention. Way deeds. Frashokareti. At the end, the Saoshyant, savior, leads the final renovation. Molten metal flows across the earth, felt by the righteous as warm milk, by the wicked as purge. The dead rise. Even the destructive spirit's power ends. Creation returns to wholeness. Ethics remains crisp. Honesty in trade, care for cattle and fields, generosity, purity, and the ritual life that keeps the world tuned. 5.6 Currents and Countercurrents. Zurvanism. A speculative school posited Zurvan, time, as primordial, birthing both Ormazd, Ahura Mazda, and Ahriman. Some Sasanian elites toyed with it. Later, Orthodox writers rejected it as over-systematizing. Manichaeism. The prophet Mani, 3rd century CE, wove Iranian, Christian, and Buddhist threads into a grand dualism of light and darkness. Sasanian authorities alternately patronized and persecuted him. Manichaeism later spread west and east. Mazdakism. In the late 5th, early 6th centuries, Mazdak preached austerity, charity, and communal sharing to shame elite hoarding. King Kavad flirted with reform. Khosrow I crushed the movement. These episodes show a religion wrestling with social justice and power. 5.7 The Last Blaze Before the Wind. Under Khosrow II, Arsar, 590 to 628, Sasanian arms briefly reclaim old Achaemenid glory, but the empire is exhausted by long war with Byzantium. In 651, after a cascade of defeats, the last Sasanian king, Yazdegerd III, dies on the run. The fire's institutional hearth is shattered, the embers must learn to travel. 6. What Zoroastrianism is and isn't, in 7 touchstones. Before we turn to exile and survival, gather the essentials the first half has traced. Monotheism with a choir. Ahura Mazda is supreme. The Amesha Spentas are faces of his goodness. Attributes become allies, and the Yazatas are worthy beings who serve creation. Moral freedom. Humans choose Asha or Druj. No fate compels. Thought, word, deed braid destiny. Ritual exactness as ethics embodied, purity and precision, a care for the world, not legal fussiness. Fire as teacher, attention, clarity, and transformation made visible. Eschatological hope. History is not a loop, but a story with a healed end, not abandonment of the world, but its renovation. Agrarian affection, cattle, clean water, fertile fields. Goodness has dirt under its nails. A civic imagination, from Achaemenid inscriptions to Sasanian reforms, Zoroastrian ideas shape governance, truth-telling, keeping covenant, punishing the lie, protecting the weak. 7. A scene by the fire. The Yasna at dawn. A small temple in Kerman 1,000 years ago. Dawn severs the night. 2 priests stand in linen and wool. One holds the balsam bundle, the other trims the wick so the flame burns without smoke. They begin the yasna, the Ahuna Vairya formula first, then Hashem Vohu, words that train their mouths since childhood. Milk and water mingle in a gleaming bowl, a sprig of haoma is pounded with rhythmic strokes. From outside, a boy peeks. The exchange looks like cooking, like craft, like surgery, and it is all 3. With each stanza, the room's edges clarify. With each offering, the priest's breaths synchronize. They are not persuading a deity. They are tuning a room to truth. 8. What comes next? In Part 2, we'll follow the embers. Through the Arab-Islamic conquest and centuries as a minority in Iran, sometimes tolerated, sometimes squeezed, onto boats bound for Gujarat, where Parsis build fires anew and write the Chisai Sanjan of their migration. Into ritual life today, Sudrech and Kusti, Navjote initiation, Dokmenashini, towers of silence, and changing funerary practice. Across diasporas and debates, conversion controversies, endogamy and demographics, education and ecology, to Nowruz and the Gahambars, to Sade and Merrigan, to ethics that look like clean water laws and honest contracts. If you're ready, I'll keep the flame lit and lead on. The Sasanian palaces lie in ruins, the royal fires are scattered. In the silence that follows conquest, the flame learns to travel. In courtyard braziers and kitchen lamps, behind high walls or in far harbours, Zoroastrians keep a compact with light. Tend what is true, refuse what is foul. Let deed follow word as steadily as a wick follows oil. We pick up the story where part one paused. The imperial hearth is cold, but the tradition is not. Now we follow the embers, across conquest, exile, reform, and return, into the rituals and dilemmas of Zoroastrian life today. 9. Conquest and the Minor Keys. Zoroastrians under Islam, 7th to 15th centuries. 9.1. The New Order. In 651 CE, the last Sasanian king falls. The Iranian plateau becomes a province of the early caliphates. Zoroastrians are gradually recognized as dim, a protected minority, paying jizya tax and granted limited self-rule. The terms vary by place and period, sometimes lenient, sometimes tight. Over centuries, many Iranians convert, out of conviction, for relief from tax and social penalty, or to enter new administrative networks. Others remain, particularly around Yazd and Kerman, where desert isolation shelters old rhythms of prayer and trade. 9.2. Books in a lower voice. With empire gone, priests become archivists. In Middle Persian, Pahlavi, they compile, translate, and comment. Bundahishan, primal creation, a sweeping cosmogony, from first light through the mixed battlefield of good and evil to the final renovation. Denkard, an encyclopedic acts of the religion, doctrine, ethics, law, quotations from lost Avestan books. Ada Waraz Namag, the Book of the Righteous Vairaf, a visionary tour of heaven and hell that reads like a Zoroastrian divine comedy. Shayest, ne shayest, right and not right, practical rulings. Sadar, a later catechism of ordinary piety. The Rivayats, letter exchanges between Iranian and Indian priests centuries later, will keep the conversation alive across seas, offering rulings on calendars, purity, and priestly discipline. 9.3. Quiet resilience. The community survives by precision and humility, exact recitation, careful purity, crafts and trade, and withdrawal from public polemic. In the towns of Yazd and Kerman, Zoroastrians maintain fire temples and Qanat water systems, pay their taxes, and teach children to tie the kusti at dawn. History shrinks from imperial to household scale and holds. 10. The Long Crossing. The Parsi Odyssey to India. 10.1. Ships and Sugar. Between the 8th and 10th centuries, traditions differ. Groups of Iranian Zoroastrians leave for the western coast of India, landing in Gujarat. Later generations remember the story in the Chisai Sanjan. The local ruler, showing a brimming cup of milk, signals that his land is full. The refugees add sugar to the cup to promise they will sweeten rather than overflow the place. Conditions follow. Learn the language, lay down arms, honor local dress, keep your religion. They settle first at Sanjan, then Navsari, Surat, and, as centuries turn, Bombay, Mumbai. 10.2. The Travelling Flame. A revered fire, remembered as the Iransha, is established, later reconsecrated, and moved through war and calm until it rests at Udvada on Gujarat's coast. Pilgrims still speak of its Iran memory and make the journey to sit in its light. 10.3 Traders and Shipwrights. By the early modern period, Parsis, the Gujarati form that becomes Parsi, are shipbuilders, weavers, brokers between Indian ports and European companies. In the 18th to 19th centuries, families like Wadia, Petit, Ready Money, Godrej, Tata knit fortunes to philanthropy. Schools, hospitals, housing colonies, bags, libraries, laboratories. A small community prints far beyond its demographic weight into the civic fabric of Bombay and beyond, with reformers like Dadabhai Naoroji in politics and scientists like Homi J. Bhabha in research. The rule of Zoroastrian ethics remains old and uncomplicated: prosper and then give. 11. The texture of a Zoroastrian day. 11.1. The white shirt and the sacred thread. Initiation, Navyot, Persian Sedre Pushi, marks a child's entrance into the faith. A priest invests the initiate with Sudra Sedra, a plain white cotton shirt with a small pocket, the giriban, near the heart, a pouch for good deeds, a moral metaphor worn daily. Kusti, a long woolen cord wound 3 times around the waist and tied with 4 knots, symbolizing good thoughts, words, deeds, and fidelity to Asha, truth, order. Zoroastrians repeat the Kusti prayers several times a day, on waking, at midday, at dusk, touching forehead and heart, untying and retying the cord to reset intention. 11.2 Prayers and the Hours. Daily devotions align to 5 gars, watches: Havan, dawn to noon; Rapithwan, noon to mid-afternoon; Uziren, mid to late afternoon; Iwis Ruthram, sunset to midnight; Ushahin, midnight to dawn. The short prayers, the Ahuna Vairya, Ashemvohu, Yengehatam, are little engines of attention. Longer sets frame workdays and festivals. 11.3 Fire, most central, but never alone. In a fire temple, Iranian Atash Kada, Indian Agiari, or Atash Behram, the flame burns protected from breath and dust. A padan, mouthcloth, covers the priest's mouth so no impurity touches the fire. Sand, ash, and water are managed carefully. Ritual is as much sanitation as supplication, the physical world treated as sacred circuitry that must not be shorted. 11.4 Marriage and Blessing. Weddings, Ashirvadan, are framed by prayers, the exchange of garlands and rice for abundance, and sometimes a thread ceremony in which the couple is circled and knotted into partnership. The ethic is unabashedly this worldly: good householding as worship, honesty in trade, kindness to animals and workers, care for elders and children. 11.5 Death without defilement. Traditionally, corpses, sources of nasa, pollution, are borne by pallbearers trained for the task, washed with ritual care and exposed in dakmas, towers of silence, so the elements and scavenger birds return them swiftly to the cycle without contaminating earth or water. In parts of India, a catastrophic vulture decline in recent decades, linked by conservationists to veterinary drugs in livestock carcasses, has forced adaptation: solar concentrators to hasten decomposition, filtration pits, and in some communities cremation or burial in lined graves under priestly guidance. The intent is constant: honor the dead, protect the living, preserve the elements. 12. The calendar and the year of feasts. 12.13 Ways to count. Zoroastrian time is solar, 12 months of 30 days each, plus 5 epigomenal days. Because some lines didn't intercalate leap days historically, calendars drifted, producing 3 traditions: Shahinshahi, imperial, common among Parsis in India; Kadimi Kadmi, ancient, adopted by reformers in the 18th century; Fazli, seasonal, aligning festivals with astronomical seasons. Hence, communities may celebrate the new year on different dates, more reason to feed guests twice. 12.2. The feasts themselves. Novruz, vernal equinox. The new year, hyacinths, sprouting wheat, sumac, candles on the haftsin table. The air smells like fresh paint and toasted sesame. Gahambars, 6 seasonal festivals of creation and community, cooking, storytelling, almsgiving. Sade, midwinter, a festival of fire. Bonfires leap 50 days before Novruz. Merigan, an autumn feast honoring Mithra, covenant and friendship. Farvardigan, Muktad, days of remembrance for ancestors. Flowers and cool water offered to the Fravashis, pre-existent souls, guardian presences. Khordad Sal, the prophet's birthday, celebrated with hymns and sweet rice. The calendar is not an escape ladder. It is a discipline of gratitude. 13. 2 hearths, 1 house, Parsis and Iranis. The Indian subcontinent hosts both Parsis, descended from early migrants, and later Iranis, arrivals from Yazd and Kerman in the 19th century. Their Gujarati and Persian tongues mingle in the bazaar. Their ritual accents differ slightly. Their fires burn to the same prayers. Beyond India, Iranian Zoroastrians remain in Yazd, Tehran, Kerman. Communities thrive in Pakistan, the Gulf, Europe, North America, and Australia. 14. Reform, identity, and the courage to adapt. 14.1. Who counts? Communities have long debated conversion and marriage across lines. Some insist Zoroastrian identity should be endogamous and inherited from both parents. Others welcome those who choose the faith or who have one Zoroastrian parent, regardless of gender. Court cases in India have wrestled with access to temples and funerary grounds. Diaspora associations often adopt more inclusive policies. In Iran, Zoroastrianism is a recognized minority faith. Proselytizing is restricted, but community life, schools, fire temples, associations endures. 14.2. Priests and new helpers. Fewer families train boys for the mobed priesthood. Some regions now ordain mobadyars, assistant clergy, including women in a few diaspora communities, to lead prayers and teachings, though full liturgical roles remain contested. The instinct behind such change is old. Keep the prayer book living, not locked. 14.3. The numbers problem. By most estimates, Zoroastrians worldwide number well under 250,000. Some counts lower, concentrated in India and Iran with growing diasporas. Low birth rates, late marriage, and emigration shrink roles. Communities respond with education funds, housing, matchmaking initiatives, and youth congresses that turn identity from museum to music. 15. Ethics with dirt under the nails. Zoroastrian ethics are practical. Truth-telling in trade and law. Contract as sacred under Mithra's eye. Work as worship. To irrigate a field, to keep cattle healthy, to clean a well is to choose Asher with your hands. Generosity. Endow a school. Feed travelers. Pay artisans fairly. Care for elements. Don't foul water with waste. Don't smoke the air. Don't bury filth where it leaches into fields. Many modern Zoroastrians frame this as environmental duty. Clean rivers, plant trees, back renewable energy. The slogan on lips for 3 millennia still fits a warming century. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. 16. Stories that carry a people. 16.1. Udvada at dawn. In the coastal town of Udvada, fishermen push boats into low surf. Inside the Iran Shah Atash Behram, a priest in white tends the flame. The air smells of sandalwood and salt. A boy, newly initiated, touches the kusti knots and whispers a prayer he learned syllable by syllable from his grandmother. He is Gujarati at school, global on his phone, Zoroastrian by the light on his face. 16,5 yazdı öğleden sonra. In Yazd, adobe alleys fold into each other like clasped hands. A woman in a headscarf and sudra pauses in a courtyard, water glinting in the pool. She teaches her daughter the Hashem Vohu between the calls to prayer from a nearby mosque. She belongs to the present and to something older than the wind towers lifting air through the house. 16.3 Toronto at night. In a suburban community centre, a Navjot wraps a child in a white shirt and a circle of wool. The hall smells of roses and baked semolina. The priest explains the 4 knots to a mixed crowd, neighbours from dozens of countries. When the child speaks the creed, Humata, Hukta, Huvashta, the applause sounds like rain on a tin roof. An ancient oath lives in a modern throat.
17. Frequently misunderstood. Set straight in brief.
Zoroastrians worship fire. No, they honour Ahura Mazda. Fire is a symbol and witness of truth and purity. It's a strict dualism of 2 gods. The oldest layer venerates one wise lord. The twin spirits name moral orientations. Later traditions personify the destructive spirit. Purity laws are superstition. They began as public health and ecology. Don't pollute water. Handle the dead carefully. Keep air clean for the living. It's a dead or dying faith. It is small and stressed, yes, also inventive and stubborn. A people who have made a civilization out of tending a flame. 18. Epilogue. The renovation. We can start now. Night again. In a temple or a living room or a desert, a wick takes light. The flame throws a circle, faces, hands, a book, a bowl of water. Outside the circle, the world goes on. Deceit, waste, cruelty, indifference. Inside it, people practice the oldest work the tradition knows. Choose the better thought, speak the straighter word, do the deed that leaves the earth cleaner and a neighbor less afraid. Zoroastrianism's wager is that creation is good, evil is parasitic, and time is on the side of truth. The final renovation, Frashokareti, belongs to a horizon we cannot name, but the work of repair begins wherever someone refuses the lie they could profit from, cleans the stream they did not foul, or keeps a promise that costs them. That is the smallest yasna, the daily service to the wise Lord. If you ever need a prayer and have none to hand, this one will do. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds, tied once around the waist of your day, it holds. End of episode 11. Fire and Fragrance, Zoroastrianism.